Hi guys, so good evening and welcome to JJ Weekly Tech Talk. So today topic is identity server 4.0. Actually, this was introduced for me by Ravin. So we did an R&D sometime back to integrate both Flow users to Apex because it's going to be the same users at the end. So even though we did the R&D, we didn't integrate it, but I thought it would be, and also I suggested to share the knowledge that I gained from the R&D. So let's move on. So this is the outline. So I'll be talking about why do we need an identity server with the modern day application architecture, and why security is important, and so what are the alternative products available, and why identity server is important, and some of the features provided by identity server, and how does the identity server work, and some demos regarding the identity server. So why is internet security is important? So this was PI director in 2012 has mentioned that there are two types of companies, one that have already been hacked, and the other type is that will be hacked. So which means ultimately every application in the internet, so it's prone to be hacked. So I'm not going to talk about how to avoid hacks, but at least you need to be aware like how security is important in your application. So to be honest, so I doing the R&D, so I have seen it's a whole new area of security. So we haven't thought about it, like some of the things that are out there. So I hope in this presentation, so we will be able to cover some of the aspects related to internet security. So this is the typical type of application that you will see in today's world. So we have browser applications like HP applications, maybe your Angular or Vue or React application, which will talk to web applications, and web applications will again talk to web APIs, and web APIs also will connect to another web API. So ultimately, so every if you take every endpoint, so that needs some sort of security. So and in terms of implementing security, so a lot of templates that are out there. For example, if you take Visual Studio, so when you build your first application, so you can add authentication page, login page, registration, and it will provide you with the how to do store cookies and things like that. So that's fine as long as you have only one application. So the minute you build your second application, or you want to keep on adding several APIs, you might want to duplicate that authentication or authorization logic in every endpoint. So so that's why people have so solution for this is the introduction of security token service. So you can think of this as a like a microservice. So yeah, microservice would tell you microservice will do so it's a single sort of responsibility or a minimum responsibility. So in security token service aspect, so its job is to do the authentication. So what would happen is, so in what will happen with the security token services? So every endpoint, when you need to do a authentication, it will call the security token service, and so each endpoint will so the security token service will create tokens, and tokens will be passed along the network, and with that the web applications or the APIs will be able to identify the user and identify whatever the grants that the user will have. So that's basically the video file security token service. And before we move on to identity server 4, it's good to know what are the other products available. These are some of the products that are available. In Federate, that's a commercial product used in Java space, and also you have the Azure Active Directory for cloud hosted applications, and company called Okta and OnZero, so they also provide these kind of security service. So why still we want to go with identity server? Because it's quite saturated space. Now, the people who have came up with the identity server, what they say is, so when they go to consult clients, what the client would say is, most of the previous products that I have shown you, so they are like out of the box products. But still, but the identity server, if you take identity server, it's not a product actually. So you can think of as a library, like jQuery or MVC, where you build your own applications and you import identity server onto it, and you build around it. So you can do all the customization. So that's the beauty of identity server. And also it's based on auth0 and OpenID Connect. So these are like the industry standard protocols for authentication, like basically security. So yeah, you can implement your own security implementations, but if you take protocols like auth0, so these protocols are developed by like security experts, so they know how the attacks are done, and also these documentations are referred by a lot of people, so a lot of eyes on the spec. So that's why it's good to have a product which implements these kind of protocols. Having said that, but still, identity server provides you the flexibility even to change the protocol as well. So that level of customization is there. And of course, it's open source and Apache 2 license, and also it's built for .NET Core. So the working foundation is there, and also there's a free and commercial support available. And so talking about free support, so recently, like yesterday, I got an issue, so I had a discussion with Avin as well, and actually they have replied like within 1 day, so I could manage to create that demo. So I will show that in the demo site. So they are pretty quick. So that kind of, so that's what I've experienced. So support is there. So that's it was free for me. So these are the features available. So as I said, the security token service, that's the main feature. So authentication as a service. So where you can centralize your login logic into one application, one place, and all your web applications, your mobile applications, native applications can directly talk to identity server and use it as a security token service. Also the single sign-on and sign-out. So actually this was the requirement for us to do the R&D. So that's there. And API access control and federation gateway is, so you might have seen some of the applications provide the ability to log into their system using Google or Facebook. So what identity server does is, so when you try to log into identity server also provides the ability to even to log into the identity server using Google or any other third-party provider. And the customizations I have already told you, and lastly, so there's a product available that they provide called admin UI. So that's a built identity server, so you don't have to worry about building your own applications. Instead, you can purchase their admin UI. So this is what I said before, where I got the support from them. And you can maintain all your users, roles, claims, everything in the in that product. So, so how does identity server work? So as I said before, it's not going to be like out of the box product. Instead, what will happen is so you have your own .NET Core application, and so identity server comes as a NuGet package, and you import that NuGet, and you build the identity server middleware to your host. And mind that so you are not going to add your NuGet package to your existing backend solution, right? Because this is going to act as a security token service. So you have to create a separate host, and whatever your backend application would talk to that host and get authorized, and then access your resources. So that you have to be clear. Um, uh, so that's basically about the introduction. So we will directly move on to the demo, and so I have a couple of examples using different types of grants. Um, so the first one is called client credential grant. So this will be useful. Imagine you have an application, and it runs a let's say midnight process, and that midnight process have to consume some API, and that API if you have to authorize, then what you can do, you can use this grant type where the client can talk to the identity server, get an identity access token, and from that access token you can access the API. Okay? So we'll see that how we can do this. So for the demonstrations, I will not create the identity server from the scratch. So there are plenty of material available if you want to create your identity server from the scratch by adding the NuGet package and configuring it. So uh, so in this solution, so I have 3 projects. Um, So like I have shown here, so we have the client and the identity server and the API. What would happen is the client is going to talk to the identity server, get an access token, and from that access token, it's going to call the API. So we will run this and see. Uh, so these are the token information you will receive from the API. So if I just go through the code, so we will first go through the identity server, how it's being configured. So here I am using in-memory clients and resources. So in later in one of the presentations, I will show you how we can add these resources clients into a database and get the values from there. So for this demonstration, so if I go to clients, now this is the client I am using. So the client ID and client secret you have to specify, and you have to give an scope. So if we go to the API, in the API it's mentioned the authorities where the API gets authorized. So that's the identity server URL, and also in the audience it's mentioning the scope API 1. So because now this client has the scope of API 1, so that's why this client can access the API. So it's going to call this controller and print on the whatever the user claims into the console. So that's about the client credentials. So I will in next demo, which will be the resource on a parcel. So this is again another type of grant. So in this case, what happened is, so this is actually not recommended because this was this is there, but this is basically for the legacy systems, because idea of this approach is to call an API on behalf of an user, and user is so the process is non-interactive, so user involvement is not there. So instead the client will on behalf of the user will call the API. But if you take a normal scenario, it's always user have to log in. If a user wants to do something, user has to be present, so it has to be an interactive process. So there's another demo which we have that, but for this demonstration, so just want to show you that it's available. So now this is the second client that I'm going to execute. So the client ID is resource owner client, and the grant type is resource owner parcel. So depending on your scenario, you have to define what is your grant type is, and again the allowed scope is API 1, and also we are adding some in-memory users here. So and the users will have their unique ID called subject ID, username, password, and there are other properties as well. So these are the minimum properties you need. So it's again similar to the previous example. So if you see the claims, there's one difference where So in this case, it has a name identifier. So because I go to the resource one. So in here, when you request a token, other than the client ID and client secret, you are specifying the username password as well. So the client will request on behalf of this user. So that's why in the claims we have the name identifier, the subject ID of the user. So this is only the indication part. So so the next one is so this is what's recommended. So the implicit flow. Um, so in here, actually the user environment is there. So you have the browser application. So user actually interacts and he will input the username and password. And from that username and password to the web application, and the web application will request the token on behalf of that user. So in this command I call the implicit flow. So let's so actually in this example I will show you the how to integrate the Google provider as well. So um, so it's pretty clear now. Now your MVC application is hosted on uh, 5002 port, and your identity server runs on 5000. So what would happen is when we so this is an unsecured page. So if we try to log into the secured page, so check the URL has redirected to localhost 5000. So which means it's the identity server login. So you might have seen this one. So this is what happens when you try to log into a system with your Google or Facebook login. So it will ask for this information, so you can allow them or not. And so the other thing is you can even rather than giving a username password, you can log in to the identity server using Google. So I have already logged in, so that's why I use this one. see now my Google from the Google user, I have logged into the identity server. So for this one, you have to create the Google application. So I will show you that. So it's just a matter of adding this because it provides all the methods for that. So you have to add authentication using Google, and you have to create your Google applications in the developers.google.com and put the client ID and client secret there that Google generates. So the next example is what happens usually the usual case. It's called the hybrid flow. So what would happen is now I only did the authentication in the previous example. So but in here, in the hybrid flow, when you authenticate, so that goes to the browser channel. They say from the browser channel because it's identity token and it only contains the information about the user. But when it comes to access token, so that tokens contains information about the resources. So that you need to secure. So in the hybrid flow, once you get the identity token through the browser channel, so it creates a back channel to pass the access token. So in that way, the access token is more secure. So we will see that something as well. So the other thing I want to show you is when you are in an identity server, so this is so when you type / well-known OpenID configuration, you can get all the endpoints in the identity server. So which means is there's a drawback for this as well, because now let's say now for the logout you have the connect. So I will show you that first. I will so what would happen is if you click on session, so all you need to know is that URL. So by hitting that URL, you will be logged out. So the issue with this is now let's say your hacker would know your identity server URL. So and all they want to do is put the because these are standard configuration endpoints, so they can simply maybe when you say you have already logged into your system and the token is stored in your browser, and let's say you are going to some other site, so which is implemented by some hacker, and they are putting an iframe and they are trying to call this URL. So without you knowing, you will be logged out from the system. So in order to tackle that, so what they are doing is they even so when you hit the logout URL, they even check you whether you are authenticated user to log out yourself. So that's how they handle it. So now I have logged in to the MVC client through the identity server. Now I can call the API. So the API will authenticate me using the token, and the API will reply me back with the claims that I have. So that's basically the basic flow of how it happens. So where user is involved and user logs into the client app using through identity server, and then you have the access tokens to talk to whatever the resources that are available through web APIs or any other web applications.
The login screen comes from the identity server, right?
Yeah.
So the users can configure. Currently, we have hard-coded the users, right?
So there's
the actual login validation, username, password validation, those things are happening on the identity server at identity server level.
And there's no direct connection between the client and the user. So this client has this set of users. Instead, what will happen is that you define the scopes for that user. Scopes for the client, and if the user has that scope, then the user will be able to log into the client. So in next example, what we do is instead of having the users clients in the in-memory, what we can do is we can have them in a separate database using Entity Framework 4. So for that also they are providing a sample application. So if you can remember earlier, we had the in-memory users and clients. So instead, what we have is you are defining where the users would come in from the DB context, and so the database is stored in this place. So even these tables, whatever the required table, so this will be created when you see the data. So they have all the migration scripts also available in the sample. So for example, now I have queried some of the data available. So if you take client, so you have the the number of clients available and the scopes for each client and redirect URL and even the client secrets. Information. So I will just run that one as well. So actually, yeah. So in this example, I have two clients. So one is a JavaScript application and the other one is the MVC application. And I have the API and the identity server running on background. So if I So I have logged into the MVC application. So if I go to the JavaScript application, try to log in. So it's not going to ask me again the to redirect to the identity server because we have already signed in. Now that's the single sign-on scenario, and you can call the API and to log out. So you are logging out from the identity server. So ideally, what would happen is, so if you refresh this, you should be asked to re-enter your credentials again because you are signing out from the identity server itself because MVC client and both JavaScript client authenticate through the same identity server. Yeah. And the one last thing is the admin UI that I've told you. So this is where I got the from the from the end for configure certain things. So I will so this is a paid product, but to try that you can request and they will host you the Azure site and they will provide you with the login information. So and this one has the documentation available, so how to configure things. So I will first log into this. So here you can add all the users you have, you want to configure. Let's say you are going to so upfront, you know, you have to implement according to your business requirement, you have to come up with maybe two web APIs and two web application things like that. So in that case, you know, you have to do the authorization in all the places. So you have the chance to decide whether you are going to build your own identity server or do the authentication in each and every applications, or you can even purchase this and use it. So here you can add the users and the roles, claim types, and the clients. So clients means the different applications you have, the APIs and the MVC applications or SP applications like that, and the resources you want to configure. So identity resources, so that's the user information, and if you want to create other scopes, like for example, you remember I have added an API scope to allow that user to access to that API. So that kind of resources you can configure it here. So I will show you the final demo. So I have configure a client called client 1, and it's so you can create the client secret and add it here from here, and so grant types you can add. So this is client credentials. So remember, so this is the very first demo that I have shown you using the client credentials. And so the other client is MVC client 1. So there, so the type is hybrid. So I have added that API 1 scope here as well. So once you have set up this one, all you have to do is from your client app. So if we take the client credentials example, so you don't need your own identity server. Instead, you provide the link for the identity server here, and you create the client in the admin UI and also generate the client secret from there, and you add the scope, and you add the scope, same scope here. So if we run this, so it's going to show that. So let me so I have so I have recorded it to backup purpose. So when we run this, actually I have to. So I missed it. I have to the No, it's working. So the error comes from here. So what I'm doing is I'm getting the token, and from that token I'm calling the API. So use the token and using claims from the API. So in the API, so all I did was changing the authority URL to this and keeping the audience as it is. So this one is the NDC client. So if we go to the secure page of this one, now it's going to redirect to that identity, this so the previous localhost one. So I have added the domains. So I can call the API as so in users, I have added the to show you demo user one, and in the clients, I have added the scope as API, so that's why it's able to call the API on the token it's generated. So if you want to
plug the identity server to an existing application is going to be a problem. Maybe if the users needs to be identity server database. Maybe they have a way to plug the users from a different database. Like we have our own authentication, user password validation, and our custom claims. Like for example, if you take TextPro, we have HR admin, employee kind of roles that should go in the claims. The users exist on the tenant database or the TextPro database, not on the identity database. That you see a way to plug this to existing product.
So the idea is you need to have them in a central place like database. Right.
Yes,
But
if
I
it's
still think
our central database.
yeah, but I still think you can change the ground type, and with that you can integrate. Because that's the same issue that we have faced integrating the text approach users to our system. You need to either move it to the user SQL center place. Yes, we have to come up with our own.
Single sign on
So they are providing these features, so I didn't go through these two. Mail them, so this is the price. So this is a one-time thing. You don't have like a yearly subscriber. So if you want to integrate this one, so it's there. for the